Okay, welcome to the vlog. It's not really Friday, it's Thursday. I just have stuff to do tomorrow, which is exciting. That's a sad revelation. The only reason I do vlogs on Friday is because I don't have stuff to do. Ugh. So what did I do with screenwriting this week? Let's talk about the camera. I did a bunch of I was watching a bunch of podcasts, listening to a bunch of podcasts again. I like Tony Northrup, Tony and Chelsea. He was talking about how he doesn't always keep his camera in manual, which is interesting. Because I've been keeping my camera in full manual forever. And just, if I make a mistake, then I have to go back and figure out what I did wrong. But what he does, I don't know if I like the framing. Let me back it up a little bit. Yeah, it's a little less obnoxious. No, it's not. Oh, here we go. The tweaking begins. So what he was talking about is normally in an environment that I'm getting so many fake telemarketer calls. That's crazy. I've gotten like 4 in the past 2 minutes. Leave a message. If you're a human being, leave a message. That's my litmus test now. So what he's been, if he takes his camera out and he's not sure if he's gonna have enough time to like set shutter, aperture, and ISO quickly, especially for photography, he'll leave it in aperture priority. That way, he can control the depth of field, and everything else is compensated for. So his exposure is already safe. Which is really interesting. His sort of thought process is you can really get sort of overloaded in data, which I definitely recognize on film sets, because you really do need 2 or 3 people in the camera department working on the camera at all times, because there's so many little adjustments that you could possibly make. I won't get into that, but this was an interesting idea that Tony brought up. Instead of being a pro and shooting a manual, he'll leave it in aperture priority, and then if he's doing a portrait, he'll just, if it's one person, he can just grab autofocus on the eye, and that's good. And then if multiple people show up, he knows he has to adjust the aperture, and that's really all he has to do, because shutter speed will be taken care of, and he'll just watch it passively. And then ISO, he'll keep it on auto, because auto ISO tends to be pretty good. I'm using auto ISO on this now that I figured out how to work around video mode. I keep it on auto ISO for that reason, because exposure changes and the camera is more quick to react to that than I would be. So I'm trying this new approach. Instead of working in manual and having to sort of build the components to make the image correct every single time, I'm gonna, if I don't want to think about it, I put it in aperture mode. I have been doing sort of this on my own anyway, because if I ever hand somebody a camera, I'll flip it back over to program or to full auto, just in case, just because, which I wish somebody would do for me. Like if somebody handed me a camera and I wasn't familiar with it, usually they're not going to expect you to spend the time to figure it out. So it's just safer to be in program and shoot raw anyway. So I'm doing that. So today, instead of in my custom mode that I put together the other day, I'm in shutter's priority. So not aperture priority, but shutter priority, because I'm doing film, and film, you need to, the general rule is you lock your shutter speed at, for me it's 1/50th of a second, because I'm shooting 24 frames. And so it's auto ISO and it's auto aperture. So hopefully the depth of field won't change, and it'll keep just moving the ISO up and down. If I was in manual, that's probably what I would do, is do auto ISO and then fixed aperture. And that's like the whole point of manual is you put a setting in, and that setting doesn't change. The camera doesn't change that setting ever. I guess that's the only appeal to manual mode. And then each different version that's not manual mode lets you control one parameter of what you're trying to do, and the camera figures out the rest. So today I'm in shutter speed mode. But if I was doing photography, I think just as a casual thing, I'll just keep it in aperture aperture mode. 'Cause that seems to be, because I was thinking about it, like, the first thing I check when I'm taking a picture is focus, and that's really defined by your aperture because of the depth of field. So that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, thanks, Tony. It was an interesting idea. It gives me a little bit more confidence if I'm in a rush, that I know, like, because usually when I'm in a rush, I'm in manual and I just hope I got it right, and then I go back later and went, oh crap, I screwed up this and it's underexposed or whatever. But if you keep it in aperture priority, most of that is taken care of. So it's kind of, I like that. Did I write this week? I have my notes down here. That's why I keep it. Let me think if I wrote this week. Based on that, probably not. I need to. I have so much rewrite debt building up. That might be today, actually. I know Sundance Episodic Lab submissions are due today, so I will probably try to do that. But then after that, I'm gonna have to do some rewriting. Yeah. So did I write? No. Shame on me. It's just like working out. It's just like doing a diet. It's just like meditating. You do it for 3 weeks. You get some conditioning. You do it for 6, and it's a habit. You go off a week. Maybe you can get back on. You go off 2 weeks. You've definitely broken the habit. So I'm in bad shape when it comes to writing right now. That's bad. Did I read this week? Yes. I read just workshop stuff, but it was quite a bit. It was about 3 scripts. It was, 100 something TV pages. So yes, and I don't have a problem with that. I could have read more, but I read a drama, I read a couple comedies, no complaints. And we workshopped them. So, did I watch? Yes. So I watched I think I already talked about watching Happy. Crap, have I watched anything else? I just watched another episode of Final Space, and I still think something is off about this show, Final Space. I can't put my finger on it. I'm not sure. Maybe the characters. Something is off about Final Space, and it's bugging me. But I'm gonna keep watching. When I get an opportunity to watch it, I'll watch it again. What else did I watch this week? I saw Red Sparrow. I just ill prepared today. I swear I saw stuff. I don't know what it was though. Who knows? Who really knows? Like, what the hell did I do Monday? I don't know. What a waste. Oh no, I was supposed to come up. I just don't have anything. I was supposed to come up with a writing tip today, because I always have a writing tip on here. Oh, okay. I'll talk about. I think I've talked about this before, but so when you're writing a screenplay, the expectation is all the information of what is happening in the story exists in the 120 pages that you've written. That's the nature of the screenplay. You go see a movie, and you expect to be set up and you expect to be paid off. One contained thing. So if a character disappears in the movie, the character, that doesn't really matter. Like, it ends. In a TV pilot, when you're writing that, part of the reason why TV pilots are so hard is because you're not just trying to tell a story with compelling characters that you have to introduce, which is tricky because you don't have a whole lot of time to do that, but you're also trying to set up expectations and norms for how the show could go in the future. And I think all the traps harken back to the original idea, because I was in a critique recently where the situation was the first episode is one way and it has a really specific gimmick connected to it. But the other episodes won't have that same gimmick. They'll have a different gimmick. But the way the pilot plays out, it seems like that specific gimmick is going to be a thing all the way through every episode that will ever exist. Be cool. There's a cat behind me. Yeah, so in this specific situation, the gimmick of the pilot episode is not supposed to be a permanent gimmick. It's supposed to be an example of the types of gimmicks you'll see. But because it's so specific and so involved, it's because of the way the pilot plays out, the pilot is now designed that gimmick is a permanent thing. And the problem is, and this was the discussion when this pilot started, was that gimmick isn't strong enough to be a permanent gimmick. I would liken it to if you saw Scrubs, Zach Braff's character, the main character, has an internal monologue that sums things up. Grey's Anatomy does the same thing. It was that level of invasive, and so because it was that involved, you can't pivot. It's not, you can't just throw that away and then all of a sudden next time it's just like a Star Wars scroll. They're so different that I guess the way you would have to set up that pilot was you would have to do the Zach Braff voiceover and then end that in the pilot, and then still in the pilot show a scroll and somehow indicate that that's another storytelling device that's going to be in there. Like it got messy. It's a messy situation. So I mean that's pilots are freaking hard because you have to anticipate what the audience would anticipate for stuff that doesn't exist yet. Which I think is why most pilots have so much trouble, because you do need an additional episode to sort of ground what is a norm and what was just unique to the story in the original pilot. Which I guess would be an argument for not just handing somebody a pilot. I mean, I don't know. In how you would try to sell a show anyway, you would hand somebody a pilot, but you would also pitch them what the story would be for the season or something. So that helps. But just in a nuts and bolts understanding of if you were writing just a pilot for just something, or if you're shooting just a pilot because that's the budget you have to really pay attention to all the things that don't have legs, all the things that can't survive another episode. Which I guess is good, because if you can whittle out all those things that would be useful in an episode but are irrelevant in the long term, you have a much tighter pilot. So I guess that's useful. It's a bummer because the what I'm thinking of, the state of the situation they're in with this pilot, because the pilot is the way it is, you pretty much have to start over on the pilot to get there has to be a huge amount of work creatively to get away from the one gimmick that is just like too involved. It's tough. Anyway, I don't know. Which is not to say stay away from gimmicks and stay away from things, because those are the things that are going to make your project more interesting and more usable and more memorable. And in theory, it's going to help you, because the more not cliched stuff, but the more established stuff you can put into a story, the more space you have for additional stuff that you can sort of shorthand with this gimmicky thing, and spend that extra page space or spend that extra screen time on stuff you really want to work on. That was all over the place, but that's my opinion of it. Box office. I didn't do very well because Black Panther is better. It's just doing better than I could have possibly imagined. So last week I said Wrinkle in Time, Black Panther, Strangers, Red Sparrow, Death Wish, and I got 2 out of 5 right. Wrinkle in Time was wrong because Black Panther got number 1. Black Panther was wrong because Wrinkle in Time got number 2. I got Strangers, I got Red Sparrow, and what I thought was going to be Death Wish was actually Game Night. So, a first weekend Bruce Willis movie got beat by a broad like third week comedy or second week comedy. So that's pretty wild. That makes sense though, because honestly, I don't think anybody cared about Death Wish at all. I don't think Bruce Willis cared about Death Wish. So this week, the big stuff that's coming out is Tomb Raider. The Tomb Raider remake is coming out, and Love, Simon, which is about that gay teen, is coming out. So we have a couple of fresh ones coming out, but apparently it looks like it's going to be a mess. So I'm saying Black Panther, Tomb Raider, which will be new, Wrinkle in Time, which is not new, Love, Simon, which is new, which is the gay teen, and then Game Night. So Black Panther, Tomb Raider, Wrinkle in Time, Love, Simon, Game Night. I don't know. Some version of this could be helpful to someone. Who knows? There's a theory, not a theory, there's a expectation, at least that I've encountered in the industry, especially as an assistant, that you read all the trades, you read Variety and Deadline and Box Office Mojo and IMDb Pro and all these things. There's a bunch of others that I can't even think of because I haven't been an assistant for very long, nor am I now, that you're completely ingrained in all of it. And then the other part of being an assistant is not only are you servicing your boss, but you're in on the calls that your boss is dealing with. So you get an understanding of your peers, which are the assistants, but you also get an understanding of everybody that your boss talks to and how they talk and how they work and how deals get made. So there's a level of like mandatory literacy there. This is a little bit of that because I'm talking about box office and watching stuff, but I also think the most important thing, and I would say probably at the expense of that assistant lifestyle of reading trades and all that kind of stuff, is just critically thinking about your work and thinking about how to keep going with your work, and really taking your ego out of it and just taking it seriously, and having a humor about it, a sense of humor about it, because none of this makes sense. None of everything except for creativity makes sense, and creativity in itself is incredibly hard to track down. So it's all crazy. It's all crazy. So nose to the grindstone. Make sure that at all points you figure out that you're still telling the story you want to tell, and I guess that's what counts. I guess service the story. Even if that means you have to live in a cabin in the woods and you're drinking tea and eating rabbit and you haven't seen a human being in months. If that's what it takes to get your story in the shape that it's the most clear, like it's so clear that it's annoying how clear the story is, then do that. So service the story. I keep adding on, so I also added clarity. So I guess your story needs to be clear. What am I doing today? My brain is just mush. I don't know what happened. Do some writing. Do writing. 19 minutes. I'm sorry, 20 minutes. Do writing. You could have cut this off 20 minutes ago. I'm sorry. Bye.